There's a reason they're stuck in your head, and it's not love. You've tried everything. You stayed busy, you called your friends, you told yourself, okay, enough, move on. And for a few hours, maybe even a whole day, it actually worked. Then you woke up at 3 a.m., and there they were. First thought. No warning. Or you heard a song, walked past somewhere you used to go, and just like that, fully, completely, they were back. Like they never left. Here's the thing though. They didn't leave. Your brain never let them go. And the reason why? It's going to change how you see this whole thing. In the 1920s, a Soviet psychologist named Bluma Zygarnik noticed something strange while sitting in a restaurant. The waiters had an almost perfect memory for every order that hadn't been delivered yet. But the moment an order was completed and paid for, they forgot it almost instantly. She took this observation into the laboratory and confirmed what became known as the Zygarnik effect. The human brain holds unfinished tasks in an active mental loop, returning to them repeatedly, keeping them alive in working memory, until they are resolved. Completed experiences get filed away, unfinished ones stay open. Now apply this to people, a relationship that ended without closure, a person you never quite got to be with, a conversation that was never finished, a feeling that was never fully expressed. Your brain registers all of these as open loops, and open loops demand resolution. So it keeps returning to them, not because you're weak, not because you can't move on, but because your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do, trying to close what was never finished. Here's where it gets chemical. When you think about someone you have strong feelings for, your brain releases dopamine, the same reward chemical we've talked about before. Even the thought of them triggers a small hit, which means thinking about them feels, on a neurochemical level, slightly good, even when it's painful, even when you desperately want to stop. Cortisol, your stress hormone, spikes when something feels unresolved or threatening. Missing someone, wondering if they think about you, not knowing where you stand. All of these trigger cortisol release, and cortisol has a very specific effect on cognition. It narrows your focus. It makes your brain zoom in on the source of the stress and stay there. So you have dopamine making thoughts of them feel rewarding enough to return to, and cortisol making your brain fixate on the unresolved situation. Together they create a chemical trap that is almost impossible to think your way out of, because the thinking itself is part of the trap. In 1987, psychologist Daniel Wegner ran a now famous experiment. He told participants one simple thing: do not think about a white bear. And then he asked them to report every time the thought entered their mind. The white bear appeared constantly, far more than it would have if nobody had mentioned it at all. This is called the ironic process theory. When you actively try to suppress a thought, your brain has to continuously monitor for that thought in order to suppress it, which means it is actively searching for the very thing you're trying to avoid. The suppression mechanism requires the thought to be kept accessible. Otherwise, how would you know when to suppress it? This is why telling yourself stop thinking about them works for about 4 minutes. The instruction to suppress creates a monitoring process. The monitoring process keeps the thought alive. And the moment your mental guard drops, when you're tired or distracted or trying to sleep, the suppressed thought floods back with even more intensity than before. Your brain wasn't forgetting them, it was holding them in a waiting room. This is where people feel the most confused and embarrassed, because surely the obsessive thoughts make sense if you were in a relationship. But what about someone you barely spoke to? Someone you went on 2 dates with? Someone you had a deep conversation with once and never saw again? The Zygarnik effect explains this completely. The intensity of the open loop has nothing to do with the length of the relationship. It has everything to do with the degree of unresolved potential. A person you dated for 3 years, but ended things cleanly and completely, can fade from your mind faster than someone you spent one electric evening with and never heard from again. Because the brain isn't measuring time, it's measuring closure. A short, intense, unresolved experience creates a wider open loop than a long relationship with a clear ending. The never dated person represents pure unresolved potential, a story your brain started but was never allowed to finish. And your brain will return to unfinished stories relentlessly. Not out of delusion, out of design. There's also a second factor at play. When you never actually dated someone, your brain has no negative data to balance the positive. Real relationships accumulate friction. Arguments, disappointments, ordinary moments. But the person you never quite got creates a mental image built entirely from the best moments and imagined possibilities. That image is almost impossible to compete with, because it was never tested by reality. Many people go no contact expecting their thoughts to quiet down, and for some people they do, eventually, but for many people, the opposite happens first. Cutting off contact intensifies the thoughts before it reduces them, and there's a clear psychological reason for this. Contact, even painful contact, provides information. It gives your brain data to work with. It keeps the loop partially fed. The moment contact stops, your brain loses its supply of new information about the open loop. And a brain facing an unresolved open loop with no new information doesn't close the loop. It generates its own content. It imagines. It replays. It wonders. It creates scenarios. No contact removes the person, but it doesn't remove the loop. And without external data to update it, the loop runs entirely on internally generated content, which is almost always more emotionally intense than reality. The thoughts don't just continue, they escalate, until enough time passes and the nervous system finally accepts that the loop will not be resolved, and begins, slowly, to release it. The answer is not suppression. We've established that suppression makes it worse. The answer, according to research on rumination, intrusive thoughts, and emotional processing, is structured acknowledgement combined with pattern interruption. Structured acknowledgement means instead of fighting the thought, you observe it. You notice it without following it. You say, "There's that thought again," and you let it pass without engaging the full emotional loop. This sounds passive, but it's actually neurologically powerful. It breaks the cortisol-dopamine cycle by removing the resistance that fuels it. Pattern interruption means deliberately changing your physical or mental state the moment the thought appears. Not to suppress it, but to redirect the nervous system. Exercise, cold water, a different environment, anything that shifts your physiological state interrupts the thought loop at a body level, not just a mind level. And finally, the most counterintuitive finding, writing about the person and the unresolved feelings in detail, once, with the specific intention of processing rather than ruminating, has been shown to reduce intrusive thought frequency significantly. You're not feeding the loop, you're giving your brain the closure it's been searching for by creating a narrative ending yourself. Your brain kept thinking about them because it was trying to finish something. That's not weakness, that's not obsession. That's one of the most fundamentally human things your mind can do. The goal isn't to force the thoughts out, it's to understand what they're asking for and find a way to answer. If this video gave you something to think about, in a good way this time, subscribe, because this is what we do here every single week. See you in the next one.